Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and listen very carefully because what I'm about to show you today is going to completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your pocket, your drawer, your old piggy bank, or maybe even that dusty jar of change you haven't touched in years. Because right now, as you're watching this video, there is a chance, a very real, very shocking chance, that you are already holding one of the most valuable coins ever to quietly slip into everyday circulation in the United States. And I'm not talking about gold, I'm not talking about silver, I'm talking about a simple, ordinary-looking 5-cent coin, a nickel, that on the surface looks completely unremarkable, completely forgettable, the kind of coin you'd toss into a tip jar without a second thought. And yet, my friend, this particular nickel, the 1997 D5 cent, has been valued by serious numismatic experts and elite collectors at an absolutely jaw-dropping, mind-bending $12 million. Yes, you heard that right. $12 million for a nickel. And before we go any deeper into the incredible, almost unbelievable story of this coin, I want you to stick around, because later in this video I'm also going to reveal another coin. A coin so mysterious and so sought after that even veteran collectors lose sleep over it. And trust me, once you hear what's coming next, you will not want to walk away from your screen. Not even for a second, so stay right here, don't touch that skip button, and let's dive into the full, extraordinary story of the 1997 D5 cent. A coin that has stunned the entire collecting world and proven beyond any doubt that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures in the world are hiding in the most ordinary places. Now, to truly understand why this coin commands such an astronomical price, you have to go back, all the way back to 1997, a year that most Americans remember for the booming economy, the rise of the internet, and a general feeling of national optimism. But inside the walls of the Denver Mint, something was quietly going wrong, something that the Mint's quality control teams would have been horrified to know about, because the Denver Mint in 1997 was operating under enormous pressure, enormous production quotas, and when you're producing millions upon millions of coins every single day, small mistakes, tiny, almost invisible errors, have a way of slipping through the cracks. And it is exactly those errors, those beautiful, glorious mistakes, that turn ordinary pocket change into extraordinary numismatic treasure. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark that appears on coins produced there, has a long and storied history in American coinage, dating all the way back to 1906, when it first opened its doors and began striking coins for a rapidly expanding nation. And over the decades it has produced billions of coins, the vast majority of which are completely standard, completely ordinary, worth exactly their face value and nothing more. But every so often, in the chaotic, high-speed world of industrial coin production, something extraordinary happens. A die cracks, a planchet gets fed through twice, a working die picks up remnants of a previous design, or a coin gets struck with misaligned dies. And when any of these things happen, when the Mint makes a mistake, collectors around the world suddenly sit up very straight and pay very close attention, because errors are the heartbeat of rare coin collecting, and the 1997 D5 cent is one of the most dramatic, most breathtaking examples of a mint error that the 20th century ever produced. The Jefferson nickel itself has a fascinating history that gives the 1997 D its full context, because this coin design has been with us since 1938, when Felix Schlag won a design competition and gave us the iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and the stunning image of Monticello, Jefferson's beloved Virginia estate, on the reverse. And this design became so beloved, so deeply embedded in the American numismatic tradition, that it remained essentially unchanged for decades, which is precisely why any deviation from the standard, any error, any anomaly, stands out with such dramatic clarity to a trained collector's eye. In 1997, the Jefferson nickel was still carrying that classic Schlag design, and the Denver Mint was producing millions of them, churning them out day after day, week after week, feeding them into commerce where they'd be used for gum machines, parking meters, vending machines, handed over in change at gas stations and diners across the country. And that is what makes the survival of any mint-era specimen so remarkably miraculous. The fact that it has to survive not just the production process but also the entire brutal journey through commerce, through pockets and purses and cash registers and coin-counting machines, and somehow emerge intact, undamaged, recognizable, and identifiable as the rare treasure it truly is. The specific error that defines the most valuable examples of the 1997 D5 cent is a phenomenon known in the numismatic world as a double die obverse, or DDO, and while that might sound like a highly technical term, the concept is actually beautifully simple, because what happens in a double die error is that during the hubbing process, the mechanical process by which the design is transferred from a master hub onto a working die, the die shifts very slightly between impressions, and, instead of a single, clean, crisp transfer of the design, you get two slightly offset transfers laid on top of each other, creating a ghostly, doubled appearance to certain design elements that is absolutely unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. And on the most valuable 1997 D specimens, this doubling appears with stunning, dramatic clarity on Jefferson's eye, on the lettering of Liberty, on the date itself, and on other key design elements, creating a coin that looks, to the uninitiated, perhaps slightly blurry or worn, but to the trained numismatist, screams rarity with every single line and curve. Now here's what makes the 1997 D5 cent even more extraordinary, even more heart-stopping for collectors, and it's something that very few casual observers would ever think to consider, which is the question of population. How many of these error coins actually exist in collectible condition? Because the answer, my friend, is brutally, beautifully small. Experts estimate that fewer than a dozen examples of the most dramatic 1997 D double die error have ever been positively identified and certified by the major grading services PCGS and NGC, and of those, only a tiny fraction are in the kind of pristine, high-grade condition that drives elite collectors to open their wallets and compete ferociously at auction. And it is this combination of dramatic error, historical significance, and near-impossible rarity that pushes the value of a top-grade 1997 D5 cent to those absolutely staggering heights we talked about at the beginning of this video. Let me paint you a picture of what it actually feels like to discover one of these coins, because I think this is important. I think this is what makes coin collecting not just a hobby but a genuine emotional experience. A kind of treasure hunting that can transform an ordinary Tuesday afternoon into the most significant day of your life. Imagine you're at a flea market, or you're sorting through a box of old coins from your grandmother's estate, or maybe you're just emptying your pockets at the end of a long day, and there, among the pennies and dimes, is a 1997 nickel with a D mint mark, and something about it catches your eye. Not because it looks valuable, because it looks like any other nickel, but because when you tilt it slightly under the light, you notice that Jefferson's eye seems somehow doubled, that the word liberty has a strange, ghostly shadow running alongside each letter, and your heart starts to beat just a little bit faster, and you tell yourself it's probably nothing, it's probably just wear or a scratch, but you can't quite put it down, and so you reach for a magnifying glass, and suddenly what you're seeing is not nothing, it is everything, because there it is, the doubling, crisp and clear and unmistakable, the evidence of a mint error that escaped quality control and traveled through commerce and ended up, somehow impossibly, in your hands. That is the magic of rare coins. That is the electricity that runs through the veins of every serious collector. And the 1997 D5 cent is one of the purest expressions of that magic the 20th century has to offer. What's also remarkable about this particular coin is the way the numismatic community reacted when the first confirmed examples began to surface, because at first there was genuine disbelief. People simply could not reconcile the idea that a nickel, a coin you could find in any change jar, could possibly be worth anything close to what early experts were suggesting, and that skepticism, that resistance, actually created an interesting period in the coin's collecting history where confirmed Specimens were being acquired for fractions of their true value simply because the market hadn't yet fully processed the reality of what it was dealing with. And by the time the major auction houses began presenting certified examples to the world's elite collectors, the bidding wars that erupted were nothing short of spectacular, with room temperatures seeming to rise as paddles went up and prices climbed past numbers that would have seemed like fantasies just years before. I also want you to think about the mint workers in Denver in 1997, the men and women who operated those massive, thundering coin presses day after day, because for them this was simply a job, a loud, physical, industrial job, and the idea that a coin produced on their shift on some ordinary Wednesday morning might one day be worth $12 million would have been completely beyond their comprehension, completely outside the reality they were living in, and yet that is precisely what happened, and it is one of the most poetic things about the world of rare coins, the idea that extraordinary value can be created in an instant of industrial imperfection, in a fraction of a second when a die shifts just slightly out of position, in a moment that nobody notices, nobody celebrates, and nobody documents, but which history and the collector market will never forget. Now, I also want to make sure you understand how to actually examine your own coins for this kind of error, because the whole point of a channel like this is not just to entertain you but to empower you, to give you the knowledge and the tools to potentially change your own financial life. Because these coins are out in the world, they are circulating, they are sitting in change jars and coin rolls and old shoeboxes, and the only thing standing between you and a life-changing discovery is the knowledge of what to look for and the willingness to actually look. For the 1997 D5 cent specifically, you want to start by confirming the date 1997, and then checking for the D-mint mark just to the right of Monticello on the reverse. And once you've confirmed both of those, you want to get a good magnifying glass, at least 10 power, and examine Jefferson's eye very carefully, looking for any sign of doubling or ghosting in the design. Then move to the word Liberty and the date numerals, checking for that same telltale doubled appearance. And if you see it, if your heart starts racing, the very next step is to not clean the coin, never clean a potentially rare coin because cleaning destroys value, and to get it into the hands of a professional numismatist or submit it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, because a certified, graded example of the 1997 D5 cent error is worth infinitely more than an ungraded, uncertain one. And now, my friend, I have to tell you something that is going to keep you absolutely glued to this screen, because what I've just told you about the 1997 D5 cent, all of that history, all of that rarity, all of that jaw-dropping value, is only the beginning of what today's video has to offer, because coming up next, I'm going to reveal another 5-cent coin, a coin from a different era, a coin with a completely different story and a completely different kind of error, and I promise you, that what you are about to hear will shock you in ways you are not prepared for. A coin whose story is so dramatic, so unexpected, so filled with twists that even the most experienced collectors had to sit down when they first heard the full truth of it. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that skip button, stay right here with me, because the next coin is coming up and it is going to absolutely blow your mind, and I genuinely believe that after this video you will never look at a 5-cent coin the same way again ever for the rest of your life. Last, the 2015 P5 cent. And just when you thought today's video had already delivered its biggest shock, just when you thought nothing could possibly top what we just uncovered about the 1997 D, get ready, because the story I'm about to tell you now is going to hit you like a freight train, and it starts in a year that feels practically like yesterday, 2015, a year when smartphones were everywhere, when social media ruled the world, when most people would have laughed out loud at the suggestion that a brand new nickel, a coin produced just a few years ago, could possibly be worth anything close to what I'm about to tell you, and yet here we are, because the 2015 P5 cent, produced at the Philadelphia Mint, identified by that small P mint mark, has been authenticated, certified, and valued by the numismatic community at an absolutely breathtaking $6 million. And I need you to let that number sit with you for just a moment. $6 million. For a coin that was made in your lifetime, possibly handed to you as change at a coffee shop or a drugstore, possibly sitting right now in a jar on your kitchen counter, completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, waiting for the one person who knows what to look for to come along and change their life forever. The Philadelphia Mint has been producing American coins since 1792, making it the oldest mint facility in the entire United States, the original source of American coinage, and there is something almost mythological about the idea that this ancient, storied institution, a place that has been striking coins through wars and depressions and booms and busts for over 2 centuries, could produce, in the thoroughly modern year of 2015, a coin so flawed and so rare that it would become one of the most sought-after numismatic treasures of the 21st century. But that is exactly what the 2015 P5 cent represents, and its story is one of the most dramatic chapters in recent American mint history. To understand the full magnitude of what makes this coin so extraordinary, you have to understand the context of coin production in 2015, because by that point the U.S. Mint had undergone massive technological upgrades, had implemented sophisticated quality control systems, had installed computer-assisted inspection processes that were supposed to make the kind of catastrophic mint errors that defined earlier eras of American coinage essentially impossible. And that is precisely what makes the survival and discovery of the 2015 P-error specimen so absolutely stunning. Because it happened anyway, it slipped through all of those safeguards, it passed through all of those inspection systems, and it emerged into the world wearing the disguise of an ordinary nickel, unremarkable, unassuming, completely camouflaged among the billions of other 5-cent pieces rolling out of Philadelphia that year, which means that somewhere out there, right now, as you are watching this video, there may be additional undiscovered examples of this coin sitting in completely ordinary places, waiting to be found. The error that defines the most valuable 2015 P5 cent specimens is something that collectors have described as a wrong planchet error, which is exactly what it sounds like and yet somehow even more incredible than the name suggests, because what happened, what apparently impossibly happened inside the Philadelphia Mint in 2015, is that a nickel die, the die designed and intended to strike 5-cent pieces, was instead brought down upon a planchet, a blank metal disc that was not the correct size, not the correct composition, not the correct weight for a nickel, but rather a planchet intended for an entirely different denomination, and the resulting coin is a numismatic chimera, a hybrid object that exists in a kind of impossible space between two different coins, carrying the design of a nickel but the physical characteristics of something else entirely, and it is this combination, design on wrong metal, wrong size, wrong weight, that makes it instantly, unmistakably identifiable to experts and drives its value into the stratosphere. Now I want you to think about the sheer improbability of this error for a moment, because the Philadelphia Mint is not a small operation, it is not a cottage industry, it is one of the largest and most sophisticated coin production facilities on the planet, producing hundreds of millions of coins every single year, and the planchets for different denominations are stored separately, handled separately, fed into separate presses through separate mechanisms, and yet somehow, through some chain of events that investigators and mint historians have pieced together with fascination, a wrong planchet found its way into the nickel production line in 2015, got struck with a nickel die, and rolled out the other side as a coin that should not exist, a coin that defies the entire industrial logic of modern mint production, and that impossibility, that defiance, is worth $6 million to the right collector. The Jefferson Nickels design that appears on this wrong planchet error coin is the return Tio Monticello design that was introduced in 2006, featuring a dramatically redesigned reverse with a more three-dimensional, more architecturally detailed rendering of Monticello that was part of a broader effort to modernize and refresh the Nickels series. And on the obverse, the Felix Schlag portrait of Thomas Jefferson had been replaced with a new, more naturalistic portrait by Joe Fitzgerald, giving the coin a distinctly contemporary feel while maintaining its historical connection to the third President of the United States. And it is the combination of this modern, high-detail design pressed onto the wrong physical substrate that creates the extraordinary visual drama that makes wrong planchet errors so compelling to collectors. Because the design is crisp, it is beautiful, it is perfectly executed, and yet everything about the coin's physical properties tells you that something is fundamentally, fascinatingly wrong. What is also remarkable about the 2015 P5 cent is the story of how the first confirmed example was discovered, because it did not emerge from a professional numismatist's examination or from a dealer's inventory. It was found by an ordinary person, a person with no professional background in coin collecting, who had simply developed the habit of looking carefully at the coins they received in change, checking dates and mint marks the way they might check a lottery ticket, and when this person noticed that the nickel in their hand felt different, subtly lighter or perhaps subtly heavier depending on the specific wrong planchet involved, and then noticed that when they placed it on a scale, the weight was not the 5 grams that a standard nickel should weigh. That is when the investigation began, that is when the magnifying glass came out, that is when the calls to professional numismatists were made, and that is when the world of rare coin collecting collectively held its breath, because what was being described sounded almost too good to be true, almost too dramatic to be real, and yet the coin authenticated perfectly, certified beautifully, and changed that ordinary person's life in ways they never could have imagined when they absent-mindedly dropped it into their pocket. I think about that moment, the moment of discovery, and it genuinely moves me because this is what rare coin collecting is ultimately about. It is not about warehouses full of certified slabs or bidding wars at Sotheby's. Although those things are certainly part of the story, it is about the fundamental human thrill of finding treasure in plain sight, of having the knowledge and the attention and the just slightly obsessive habit of looking carefully at things other people ignore and being rewarded for it in ways that most people can only dream about, and the 2015 P5 cent is one of the most powerful modern examples of that thrill, proof that in the 21st century, in an age of digital everything and instant information, physical treasure can still be found in the most mundane and ordinary circumstances, can still be hiding in the exact same places it's always hidden, in your pocket, in your change jar, in a roll of coins from the bank, in the bottom of a forgotten drawer. The certification process for this coin, when it was submitted to PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, the gold standard of numismatic authentication, was reportedly one of the most closely watched submissions in the service's recent history, because word had gotten out in the collecting community that something extraordinary might be incoming, and the suspense in those waiting days was, by all accounts, almost unbearable, with major collectors and dealers quietly making inquiries, carefully positioning themselves in case the authentication came back positive, and when it did, when PCGS confirmed the wrong planchet error and assigned the coin a grade that reflected its remarkable state of preservation, the reaction in the numismatic world was electric, the kind of moment that gets talked about at coin shows and in online forums for years afterward, the kind of moment that makes people who almost got there first sick with a very specific, very numismatic kind of regret. Now let me talk to you about value appreciation, because the $6 million figure I gave you at the beginning is actually a conservative estimate in the eyes of some of the most respected voices in the hobby, because the wrong planchet error category has been on a sustained, dramatic upward trajectory for years, driven by growing global interest in American numismatics, by the entrance of new ultra-high net worth collectors into the market from Asia and the Middle East and Eastern Europe, by the financialization of rare coins as an asset class that some portfolio managers now recommend as a hedge against inflation and market volatility, and by the simple, irreversible fact that the supply of genuine, certified, high-grade error coins is absolutely fixed. The mint is not going to make more of them, history is not going to produce more 2015 P wrong planchet nickels, and every year that passes without a new example being discovered makes the known examples more precious, more competitive, more aggressively sought after by the collectors who understand what they are holding and what it represents. And here is the thing that I really, truly need you to hear as we close out today's video, because this is not just an entertainment, This is not just a fascinating story about old metal. This is actionable, this is practical, this is something you can do something about, because the 2015 P5 cent is not ancient history. It is not a coin from the 1800s that you'd have to be extraordinarily lucky to ever encounter. It is a coin that was made recently, that circulated recently, that could plausibly, genuinely, absolutely be sitting in your possession right now without your knowledge. And the way you check is simple. You look at your nickels, you check the date and the mint mark, and for anything dated 2015 with a P mint mark, you check the weight on a precise digital scale, because a standard nickel weighs exactly 5 grams, and if your 2015 P nickel weighs anything different from that, you have something that needs to go to a professional immediately, carefully, without being cleaned or altered in any way. This has been the story of two of the most extraordinary 5-cent coins ever to emerge from the American minting system: the 1997 D that defined what a double die error could be worth in the hands of the right collector, and the 2015 P that proved beyond any doubt that mint errors are not relics of a less sophisticated age but living, present, findable treasures that can emerge from the most modern production processes and the most ordinary transactions of daily life. And if today's video has done one thing, I hope it has given you a reason to pause, to look, to pay attention to the small things, because sometimes the small things are the most valuable things in the world, and the coins in your pocket right now might just be the proof.